Carper.
Yeah. Thanks. It's great from one recovering governor to another recovering governor. Welcome to the Finance Committee. Thank you for your willingness to serve our country in yet another important role. I was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives. I'd been a state treasurer for a number of years. I was a naval flight officer before that. But I was elected to the Congress in 1982. And there are a bunch of us. I mean, I think that we had a freshman class of maybe 80, almost 100 people. A lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans. And the first week or so that we were in office, I think my recollection, we got on a train. I don't think we flew, but I think we got on a train, and we went to Harvard, all the newly elected House members. And the idea was to get to know each other. And the idea was to try to begin focusing on some of the big issues of the day. And one of the big issues of the day, there was a Social Security Trust Fund was running out of money. And one of the first issues that I worked on as a young House member was Social Security availability to make sure that it was going to be there for future generations. I have one of my favorite sayings is find out what works, do more of that. Mm. And as we revisit the same issue here all these years later, that might be a good thing to do. Among the things that worked, we decided not to make it a partisan issue. We decided to make it a bipartisan issue. And there are Democrats and Republicans who stood up and said there's not one silver bullet. There's a lot of different things that we have to do, need to do. And we did most of those. The key was leadership. We had leadership from the president at the time. We had strong leadership from Democrats and Republican leaders in the House and the Senate. We had great leadership on the committees of jurisdiction as well. So I'm delighted that the recovering governors and maybe a position to come back and help us address this issue again. We have a number of members of this committee, Democrat and Republican. One of the key members is Bell from Louisiana, who's a doctor, but he's pretty good on these issues and not afraid to be courageous on these issues. So I would, with that having been said, have a statement here that I just would rather talk from my heart. And sometimes I get in trouble doing that, but I'd rather talk from my heart. I'll ask you a question, though, that my staff was good enough to give me. But if confirmed, how do you plan to expand interagency coordination to improve the Social Security Administration's customer service and response times? As governor, you had a state pension. You had probably a bunch of pension plans in your state for state employees and others that you were sort of responsible for ultimately. And one of the things that I focused on as governor is trying to make sure that if somebody's calling our Division of Revenue about tax issues, that somebody got on the phone and helped them. Somebody was calling the pension office, state pension office, and you had questions about, but somebody got on the phone and helped them, and we actually were very proactive. The record at the Social Security Administration for customer service is not good. My first question then would be, how do you plan to expand interagency coordination to improve Social Security Administration's customer service and response times?
Yes, Senator, thank you for your question. And the key is going to be to snap Social Security out of what it has been a long time-honored practice of contenting itself with annual accountability, like a budget, and the annual budget inputs. And instead, we have to get into a much faster velocity, a much more agile speed of bringing about the changes that we all know need to happen so that people get their phone calls answered and they get their face-to-face meetings when they need them. And if they are a member of their family or themselves is going through a disability determination, that they don't die waiting for it to be resolved if they have to appeal it. There's no single magic solution to that, but it has been my experience, both as a mayor and as a governor, that if you bring people together and we're clear about what the big goals are, it is amazing the way the leaders will rise when you start measuring yardage, when you have a compelling scoreboard that everybody can see. And it's really about big organizations learning from their own leaders. I mean, if you were to plot on a...
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you. I have a couple of other questions. Let me just come... Have you ever heard the name Danny Werfel?
I have. You told me to meet with
Yeah.
them, and I
Yeah,
did.
good. One, he's new, he's the new IRS
Yeah.
commissioner, and one of the things he said right here where you're sitting, and we talked about the lousy service the IRS was providing.
It's getting better.
And about 2 years ago, you call a taxpayer, call the IRS, or I think it was like a 13% chance that anybody get on the phone and actually take the call. Last year was about up to 87%. And a big part of it was leadership. And if confirmed, and I sure hope you will be, that you're in a great position to help provide that leadership. So I would just say, now, be strong, and I know you will be. I said, I'm a big believer in the golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated. And when people are calling that, asking for help, I don't care if it's a postal issue, it's a Social Security issue, it's a tax issue, we got to help them. Okay. Second thing I want to mention is we have a propensity to send out improper payments from the federal government, improper payments. And I think GAO estimates now that there's about $247 billion with a B, in improper payments across the entire federal government for fiscal year 22, just for 1 year. 1 year. As elected officials, one of our most important responsibilities, of course, is to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. A couple of years ago, 2020, in fact, the Congress passed something called the Stopping Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. It was a bill that Senator John Neely Kennedy and I partnered on. The law requires the Social Security Administration to share its full file of death information with the Do Not Pay working system for a 3-year period beginning December 23rd, 2023. That's this December 27th, 2023. And I would ask, you may not be able to answer this for the record, but if confirmed, will you commit to working with our staffs, not just Senator Kennedy and myself, but our staffs broadly, to ensure that the Stopping Improper Payments to Deceased People Act is implemented not overnight, not in a week or in a month, but in a timely way?
Yes, Senator, and I appreciate your leadership on that issue. Open, transparent, data shared by all.
Good, thank you. And if I think I have time to go for another one. Here we go. This deals with morale and employee retention at the Social Security Administration. Strengthening the federal workforce and retaining high-quality talent in federal agencies, big concern of mine, and I'm sure it will be of yours. It's critical that our federal workforce is well-trained. It's critical they be equipped to handle the challenges in the next decade and beyond. The Office of Personnel Management's Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey is conducted every year. It evaluates job satisfaction among federal workers, as you may know. In 2022, the Social Security Administration was ranked among the lowest federal agencies included in that survey, lowest. And my question would be, if confirmed, what do you think you would do? What would you be inclined to do from day one, maybe drawing on some of your earlier experience as governor, to improve morale among federal workers at the Social Security Administration and to enhance retention and recruitment efforts at that agency, please?
Senator, thank you. I look forward to rolling up my sleeves and working with and being among and with the hard men and women at the Social Security Administration. I have not had as many conversations as I will have if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed by this committee, but I am looking forward to actually listening to them. My sense is, from the people I've spoken to, is that it has been a long time since they've had leaders that would actually listen to what they're experiencing on the front lines and doing the work. That's why you have a record year in terms of new hires, and at the same time, a record year of attrition. People at SSA have historically really had a high sense of mission, high sense of purpose. The fact that they would sink to the lowest morale in the nation, I think, says a lot more about the lack of leadership there than it does about some sort of sea change or something in the water, among the employees. And so I'm looking forward to being an operational leader, to being among and with, lifting up the leaders in the eyes of their peers, measuring performance so that that organization can learn from its highest performers. And when you do that, you create a winnable game for people. They want to come to work. They want to encourage their friends to apply to work there. And that's what we need to get back to. It won't happen overnight, But it does require leadership, and I promise you, Senator, I will throw myself into this challenge with 1,000% of what I've got.
Good. I'm sure you will. Mr. Chairman, I've known this man since he was like too young to get into O'Friel's Irish Pub in Wilmington, Delaware. And he was part of an Irish singing group, and that was actually quite
So
extraordinary.
you were in the pub?
And I was checking IDs at the door. That's where we met. But
All right.
ever since then, and from then till now, who would have thought we'd have traveled these different paths? But we're glad your path has taken you here today, and delighted to support your nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
And Governor